So I know I am tardy to the party, but I finally saw Iron Lung the other day while recovering from a rough hangover, and I really liked it. I watched it again today, so I have now seen it twice, for those in the back. I then watched several YouTube videos, as I normally do after watching a movie for the first time, both on the lore in the game and the movie, as well as reviews and such. Much has been said, as this was clearly a prime candidate for movie YouTubers. There are several things I haven't seen mentioned much, if at all, and so would like to discuss them. Like several other movies I have seen recently, Iron Lung surprised me in the best way. Even after the movie came out and I saw people liked it, I still wasn't sure if I would be one of them. Well, I can definitely say now that I am, and this is for several reasons. First, the acting and writing is honestly much better than I anticipated. While some scenes and lines felt kind of cheesy, like the opening voiceover or the early dialogue between Simon and the one-eye captain, they weren't the majority and didn't take me out of the movie. Second, it looks great and is well paced. Third, and most importantly, they created a universe and a storyline that I am genuinely interested in. I didn't play the game before the movie, so the movie was my first real exposure to the universe, excluding some clips and such, and it got me to want to learn more about the lore by the end of the movie. Some of the highest praise you can give something like this, in my opinion. Alright, quick opinion paragraph out of the way, let's talk about some specifics. Where better to start than the main character, Simon? It is easy to miss on a first watch, but he and his past are intricately connected to the events of the film, both directly and tangentially. An obvious connection that I haven't seen mentioned is the irony of sending a man nicknamed Simon the Butcher into a literal ocean of blood. You could even argue he is offered a chance at redemption, ultimately being asked to sacrifice his body, mind, and soul. Simon is portrayed as a highly selfish man whose main goal is to survive, despite the cost to those around him. And based on what we hear about his past, many have died to allow him this chance. Perhaps this isn't hell, as many have posited, but instead a sort of limbo, where those left behind in the quiet rapture are offered one final chance. His connection to the sapling comes to mind as well. I will admit, I still am not entirely sure how I think the sapling got into the computer for Simon to find, but it seems there are a few possibilities. The simplest answer is that it was left by another man or woman from Eden, following the war and eventual death of the last tree. If I understand correctly, Eden was fighting, at least in part, to produce bodies to create soil for the tree, and after it died, some saplings survived in possession of a select few, encased in amber or something similar. The other answer that I can't properly support with an explanation, at least yet, is that somehow Simon left it there for himself. It sounds crazy, but there are other things that happen, as well, that definitely imply that time works differently in the Blood Ocean, and so I think it is certainly a possibility. There are several shots and hallucinations throughout the film that I think further strengthen this as an option, too, such as his hallucinations, seeing his future self. Moving on, there is a quick line of dialogue that I didn't notice until my second watch that I think is extremely important. While discussing the bathysphere, Ava mentions to Simon that the window came from the filament station, the one he is heavily implied to have destroyed. She says something like, "Not a scratch on it," clearly taunting Simon, as he too somehow escaped the station unscathed, as well as connecting Simon and the window through a shared past. Interestingly, unless I am mistaken, I don't think we ever learn how Simon survived, which is another detail I think could relate to some sort of time warp that is occurring. Especially considering the weird connection between him crossing the wires to get the computer working on the bathysphere and crossing the wires to destroy Filament Station, another detail revealed in a quick line of dialogue near the end of the film. Back to the window, it plays a large part in the plot. The station he destroyed being named Filament Station is no coincidence, at least narratively, and not just because of the window's involvement. I won't go into the science, mainly because I don't know much, but I do know filaments are essential for organic life, at least complex organic life, and we witness an amalgamation creature made up of several humans and who knows what else. The blood seems to be breaking down Simon's cellular structure at an incredible rate, and even brings the ship to life by the end of the movie. The window acts as a barrier until the pressure causes it to crack, leading directly to Simon's infection when the blood hits his eye. Additionally, the window cracks in a pattern that looks a lot like a tree, a symbol that is pretty clearly related to the overall theme of nature's loss. But the crack also resembles something else, that of electrical filaments, a conductive wire found in incandescent bulbs that heats up and emits light. When Simon is forced into the strange light by the creature, the crack in the window lights up and seems to allow the light into the craft, acting as the conductor for whatever energy is passing through the ship, and now him. I like the aspect of fate here, and it stands out even more when you consider all the religious implications in the film. Alright, let's roll through some other thoughts and questions. One connection that I think seems obvious, but I have not seen discussed, is that of a majority of the human population disappearing coinciding with the appearance of a blood ocean. Even if I can't exactly explain how it happened, it seems to me that the absence of one explains the presence of the other. Now, Markiplier does float the idea during the film that maybe they, the humans on the space stations and ships, were the ones transported because, wouldn't that make more sense? And if that were true, it would mean the blood came from elsewhere. But that would only matter if this theory was confirmed. I will admit, what he says does make sense, but I still think the blood ocean, maybe even the entire moon, is what remains of the vanished majority. I still don't know what happened with the speaker. Was it never broken? He just hallucinated that it was? Or maybe he moved from a timeline where it was broken to one where it was not. I am fairly certain that, regardless of whether it was actually broken, he was not talking to the fish monster through it. Shortly after the blood squirts into his eye, he yells about something and says his name for I think the first time in the film, as it is later revealed that the captain and others didn't even know it, giving more context to them always calling him Convict. This explains how the monster knows his name later, and the blood squirting in his eye explains how they were communicating, being through the infection. I will also note here that the movie does an excellent job of hitting Markiplier with so much shit that it is impossible to know what is in his head and what isn't by the end. Dude is exposed to massive levels of radiation, heat, dehydration, lack of nutrients, and lack of sleep. He almost certainly has multiple concussions, is losing blood, and at one point drinks a cup of isopropyl alcohol, which is not good for you. Another interesting detail I noticed is that throughout the film, he consistently asks if he can be set free, and the answer is always either a no or avoidance. It is only near the end when Simon explicitly states that he wants his freedom in exchange for saving the human race, that Ava definitively says he will have his freedom, as that is what would have been required. I know that we later learned she was never planning on saving him, but I still think this was intentional. Near the end of the film, Markiplier is hearing many different voices and skipping through time. It is during this scene that we hear someone say, "You did cross the wires," which to me implies that doing so is what destroyed Filament Station. This is also how he has avoided accountability in his mind, telling himself he didn't know what would happen. Back to the voices, someone warns Markiplier that it's a trap and that they are watching. But who says this? I don't think it is the blood monster or the blood god. So could it have been his mother? After all, she is mentioned several times, including being directly related to the black box making it to the surface due to a strap or something that had belonged to her. I could be way off, but I am throwing it out there. We do hear a lot from the blood monster, even if that specific line isn't included. The amalgamation creature gets pretty monologue-y while Simon is fleeing and retrieving the black box, and I am still not entirely sure what to make of everything it says. It seems to want to prevent the remainder of humanity from learning of the light and the God, and tells Simon it wants you to do this, implying that the God wants to be found. Additionally, before the blood monster dies along with the ship, it yells some weird stuff like, "You changed everything, your ship is alive, pray that you stay dead, we are salvation, and we die, we live." "You changed everything" could mean many different things, but I think it mainly refers to him releasing the information on the black box. It is subtly implied throughout the film that a fair amount of time has passed between when the research team became the blood monster and when Simon makes his first descent. So I think the monster has been down there, guarding the secret of the light this entire time. Additionally, I think it's possible that the bones are older versions of the same monster, mainly due to the line, "We die, we live," although I admit that that could be referring to the perpetual cycle of death that Simon is possibly trapped in. I just don't see much evidence to support a different conclusion, other than the monsters simply being other crews we don't hear about. A will to live seems to have something to do with it too. The lead researcher was eating the blood to survive, leading to the blood creature, I think showing a strong survival instinct similar to Simon, and she even asks him if he would sacrifice everything to survive, to which he responds yes, and it seems to be the reason that the creature takes him to the light and even forces him into it when he hesitates. One final thought on the blood monster is this. Is it starting to view itself as a god? I think this is possibly shown in the line, "We are your salvation." Now, it could have been referring to the actual god, but it doesn't sound that way to me. It sounds like what the creature wanted was for Simon to join it in the blood ocean, preventing humans from ever finding the light again. In doing so, Simon could glimpse eternity and become immortal, and super ugly. Alright, fine. A final thought about the creature is that the decayed version of Markiplier we see both at the start of the film and near the end looks like it is turning into another blood monster fish thing. Look at the mouth during the second scene and you will see what I'm talking about. Some random thoughts before we reach this video's conclusion. It seems to me that there is some symbology behind the tape not being able to hold the button down forever, while the blood can. I think it could have something to do with the ship gaining sentience, but I am not sure. I know this video has been kind of all over the place, but that's okay, because I really just wanted to talk about Iron Lung. Like I said, I love a movie that leaves me thinking long after the credits roll, and Iron Lung has certainly accomplished that. In an industry oversaturated with content that caters to the lowest common denominator, it is highly refreshing to get a film that clearly respects its audience. It doesn't tell you everything that is happening as it happens, or stop to explain what has happened. Many important lines of dialogue could be easily missed if you weren't paying attention. If you're busy on your phone and aren't watching the screen, you will miss important events and shots. And I like that. I also love that the movie starts as soon as you hit play. It really made me realize how much of my time has been wasted by movies having long, unnecessary intros. Props to Markiplier and all involved. It is truly a game changer in every sense of the phrase, and I loved every minute of it.